closely well connected they are. For me, I imagine the first time anyone ever danced was the first time they heard rhythm or music, and it inspired them to move however they did at that time, whenever it may have been. So, Alpha, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, basically the point of the workshop is a few different things. Turn your amp down a little bit. So, a lot of the stuff we're teaching comes from a few different places. There's a bassist named Big Wooten who teaches a lot of stuff for bass and musical instruments, and we've kind of taken some of his ideas and applied them to dance. It also comes from James Brown, a few different people, the owner of Daptone Records, who's put out a whole bunch of instructional material about music and how it applies to funk and everything. But what we're going to be going over a lot is music theory. And music is a language. It's how musicians communicate between each other, and music theory is basically the grammar of that language. And generally, music theories only apply to musicians, and as far as dancers, we never really think of any of that. And if you hear the word music theory, what you're probably thinking is notes, scales, things like that, or composition, the staff, musical staff, and all that stuff. But so, like, real quick, what are the elements of music? Just anybody.
Rhythm.
Rhythm, melody. Okay, we'll say melody counts as notes. Anything else?
Soul.
Okay, feel. We'll call that feel. That's only three things. But music is made of so much more than that. Beyond that, there's dynamics. Does anybody know what the word means? Dynamics. It's basically. Go ahead and turn that real quick. So dynamics is how hard or how soft you play something. Something like this. It's just how hard or how soft you do something. There's also articulation. How long do you hold notes?
The difference between, well, the way we kind of like to think of it, just the way music thinks of itself is, music is spaced out on a staff. You've got eighth notes, quarter notes, whole notes. You've rest where you play nothing at all. And all of that is important when there's no music playing as well as when music is playing.
Yeah.
So the length of how you play a note from when you start it till the ending of that note, and then how it inspires the next note that follows.
Real quick, just for the rest of it, when we say note, we're going to be saying note and things like that a lot, but think of a note as a move, basically.
A step,
So,
a point, a
yeah.
wrist roll.
There's, like we said, there's notes, so that's one element. On top of notes, there's tone. How something sounds. This thing's this, and I turn a few knobs. You get several different sounds out of it. Same thing with your moves. You can do style moves, things like that. Phrasing, how you put things together. And space, where notes aren't. Now, like he was saying, we're going to start with rhythm and tempo, because that's what most dancers think of. You've all heard 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Does anybody know how to count beyond 5, 6, 7, 8? Like how dance count goes, or musical counting? Okay, yeah.
8 counts?
Yeah. So,
But now, how much is 8 counts take up in a song, and what comes after that?
so like, even before we get to that, we've got the 8 bars, right? Or 8 counts. So 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Typically, when a lot of b-boys dance, poppers, things like that, b-boys pay attention to that 2, 4, 6, and 8. So if you watch us, we do. We do a lot of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the time. And if you watch a lot of b-boys in their all-styles battles, what do they do if they get a dubstep song? They go 1, 2, 3, 4. we're trying to like, they don't know how to hit, they're used to hitting that 2, 4, 6, 8. But when you look at an 8 count, you can always divide. Music is basically just math. So in between the 8s, you have something, which is a quarter note. And the way you count that, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so on, like 5. And if you think of a kick step, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You're hitting quarter notes. So if you get a dubstep song, 1, 2, 3. Instead of doing that, you can think 1 and 2 and. You have all these other notes in between that you can hit. In between those, you have 16th notes. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and so same type of thing. So let's see if this works. Got it up here. I'm going to try to talk about also kind of the history of club culture and dance and music a little bit too. So we'll start with funk because that's where everything starts at. If you pay attention to the song I'm about to play, for funk, everything was based on the 1. That's the first beat. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. If you watch how B-boys rock, 1, 2, 3. James Brown gets a lot of credit for being one of the inspirers of B-boying. But another dance at the time was called the Breakdown by Rufus Thomas. And the song was called Breakdown by Rufus Thomas. And the dance floor was this. 1. If you notice, the only thing that changes for b-boying is we step out. And that's it. But a lot of that's based on that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So, we'll play James Brown real quick. I'll point out for that. They're putting all their emphasis on the 1. Now the reason I've been talking about all this is if you're a dancer and you're listening to a song and you need to know where that 1 is. What every single one of these musicians does is listen for the drummer because they know that one of their drummers, they had 2 at the time, is going to hit a crash or something that let everybody in the band know where the 1 is. Because generally, the way James Brown would perform and the way bands performed at that time is they would have a set list. But James Brown, you ever hear him when he's talking for like 20 minutes and the band just keeps playing in the background? They're waiting for James Brown to tell them, here's the 1. So if you're a dancer, you're getting into a song you've never heard before, it's a b-boy, all styles battle, anything. If you can find that 1, you know where the accent's going to come. And the way music works, Western music, is everything is based around 8s. All changes come at 8, 16, whatever. So if you're coming out as a dancer, you can just count. 1, 2, and you can keep track and say you're dancing and you know you've got a freeze that's coming up or a blow up or something and you want to hit it on the accent. If you just time it right, keep your timing, which it sounds complicated now.
Does anybody have any questions before we go any further? Anything that we talked about so far? Maybe some sort of examples or just anything at all? Cool. Okay. So yeah, if you as a dancer just can find that 1, pretty much you're good to go. Because we want to be able to teach you one of the points of this workshop is that we're going to give you these elements and how to look at them. So basically, think about how often any of y'all practice during the week, like physical practice sitting in the room. And then outside of that, think of how often you listen to music. If you could take that time that you spent listening to music and make it productive, like learn how to take apart the songs and things like that, which was kind of, we're going to give you the tools to do that, you can practice it anytime you want. So basically, your practice time doesn't have to stop when you leave the student center or your practice spot or anything like that. You can pretty much keep breaking down these songs, and when you do it live at a jam, you can hear a song and you can know where everything needs to go. And every single one of your moves can be on beat. So think of 6-step.
It's 6 moves, and you need to try and get it to fit in 4, because that's how, like I said, things are based around 8 on the bigger scale, smaller scale, 4. So you need to get 6 moves to fit in 4. If you remember, we counted that 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So you can learn to get your footwork on beat if you want to. We were talking about blues on the way over here. If you listen to blues, it's almost always 2, 3, 4 notes, and that's it. It's just really simple stuff. But if you learn how to control that simple stuff and get it in time, get it in the pocket, pocket is like the groove of a song. You can stay in the pocket, you can do simple stuff and still do a lot with it.
And another good point with blues musicians, often you go hear blues where you go and hear all the time a rundown bar, hole in the wall, people falling over tables, they might be crying in the corner, who knows. But the musicians are often just self-taught musicians, so they really only learn a few notes or a few chords. Their vocabulary is very simple, but often, you know, when we think of the blues, what do we think of? Sad songs, that kind of vibe from it. These musicians are often some of the most soulful musicians for the fact that maybe they put all their energy into just expressing themselves through the music as opposed to how fast I can play a song or how complicated I can make it.
Yeah.
It can be as simple as you want it to be, depends on what you put into that movement. It can be a point or a step or whatever. It can just be the way you walk out. It's the energy that you put into that motion when you take off.
It brings us into feel. Just whatever emotions you feel. So when a musician plays and we play with each other or whatever, we're talking to each other and trying to tell each other how we feel. It's like we're saying, I'm having a bad day, I'm having a good day, or whatever. So when you hear a song and you hear things, try to get a good idea of what the feel for the song is. A good way to do that, and this will help you with your practicing too sometimes, or at least practicing how you listen to music, is breathe along with the song. So if I've listened to this, and I'm standing on the side, I might time my breathing to kind of go with the song, or I might try to mouth it. And what that can do is it can help your body get into the feel of the song. And Marvin Whitney used to sing with James Brown. The first day she came into the studio, before James Brown got there, they took her to the side and they taught her how to count beats. And the way they taught her how to do it was with her heel. If you listen to a lot of people, they have their foot, not their head. But they made her, James makes us do it with our heel. The reason they do that is James's idea was it gets your ass in it. It gets your body moving. So if you're standing on the side of a battle, you kind of don't want to be doing this all the time. You can, but if you're doing that, make sure you're doing something to kind of get you into the mode of the music. So if you're doing that, try to breathe, shift on your heels, do something that's going to get your body ready to become a part. So I want you to think of your body as like an instrument more than anything else. Because there's no difference between what you do with your body and what we do with an instrument or something like that. It's just you're taking physical movement and translating it to music. That's the exact same thing. The only thing is you don't hear anything, unless you're a tap dancer, which is exactly the same. So, just try to think about all that when you're listening to a song and try to get into it and get the feel for it. Like if you hear a song like the Jackson Sisters, I Believe America's in a B-Boy Battle, that's a happy-ass song. It's about love and all this stuff, and a lot of race DJs won't play it anymore because of that. So if you come out to that song, and it's like, I believe, and you're like, that looks a little off.
Kind of like you're trying to fight, and the song is talking about miracles.
Same thing if you hear something that's, if you hear like Method Man Bring the Pain, and you're like, doing that, that's going to look a little off. You want to kind of have a feel for it. And if you don't, you got to kind of understand that that's what you're doing, that you're purposely ignoring the feel for the song. And you've got, that's when you're kind of getting into character territory. And if you're going to do a character, do a fucking character. Like, really get into it.
Before we get into character, because then we're going to be going into a whole other subject there. Just back on feeling in itself. If you've ever listened to Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles, how soulful is their music? And these are both blind guys. They play so well, often probably more so because they can't see. They have to feel more because they can't see what they're doing with their hands. They have to feel the piano or the strings of the guitar in order to do it. They're often also great singers as well, possibly because they can feel just better than we can because that sense is taken away from them. All that energy is being directed somewhere else in their body.
Another thing along those lines is it's, you want to have, another thing that some of blind musicians, they have to, when they play, they have to go on feel, alone, touch. But at the same time, they don't have the luxury of looking. But sometimes that can be exactly the thing that you need to help you get something down. Another thing needs to be really, I forgot to mention, is technique, the way you do things. And one thing a lot of you boys do is they have, or any dancer, they have a tendency to concentrate really, really hard on something to try and fit. And sometimes that's exactly the opposite of what you need. If you can, when you're practicing, try to have a conversation with somebody, turn the TV on, something like that. Get your mind out of it. There's a bassist named Anthony Wellington who talks about 4 stages of being a musician. First is unconscious unknowing. This is when you first pick up an instrument, or maybe when you first started dancing. You're just going out, you're having fun, you're doing the rock, or you're just doing this thing over and over again. Like whatever it is, but you don't know, you're at the point where you don't know anything, and at the same time you don't know that you don't know anything. You can just have fun. Like this is the best, this is like the happiest you're going to be as a dancer. This is when you don't know anything, you don't know that you don't know anything. The next point is conscious unknowing, and that's where now you've gotten down with some people who you started training for a while, you've gotten in some battles, and you realize, oh, I don't know shit. I don't know anything. And that feels shitty. That's usually when most people quit, is when they're like, this is going to be terrible. I don't want to do it anymore. Second part, which is where most dancers get to, most musicians, is conscious knowing. This is where you're in the moment, you know what you're doing, you know how to dance, you know how to play music or whatever, and you're conscious of that, and you can think about it, and you can go where you need to go, but at the same time, you're having to think about it. You're having to think about all the things you're doing, what you're going to do next. The last stage, which not a lot of people get to, but the best people get to, is...
Before you go to that stage, just touching on what Alpha was saying about having a conversation with someone while you're doing that, being in the unconscious knowing phase of it. When you're wanting to really be aware of what you're doing, one exercise that I generally find to be very beneficial for me when I dance, whether it just be to warm up or really just to kind of get my mind into the fact that this is what I'm doing. I'm here to dance. I'm here to feel what this music is trying to say to me and express that through my movements. So I will practice the heel tap, like Brent was talking about, and just do that to the music, and whatever spot that you're in, it can be in any space, because you don't have to do a whole lot. You can just get to rocking and really feeling the beat and the rhythm of the music come all the way up your body. And then I would encourage you to close your eyes and feel it, like a blind musician would feel an instrument that he is about to play. And just really take in what's going on in the music. Pick it apart if you can. Try to find as many instruments as you can in that, and pick that one instrument out and just listen to that rhythm over and over again. And then you'll start thinking of moves automatically because you've just been at one point maybe focused on 2, 4, and 6 in the count, or 1, 5, and 7, wherever you've been. You'll start hearing where in the time frame all of these instruments are playing, and then be able to express those rhythms through your movements as well. A tambourine shaker moves in a certain way, but if you hear a song that has heavy tambourine on it, it gives you a certain feeling. You may not even know it, but it's just the tambourine itself giving you that sensation, that rocking feeling, whatever it is that inspires you to move your body. Sometimes we are inspired and we don't know why, and that's what understanding the music a little bit better would help a lot of us get to know.
So like he was saying, when you're in that conscious knowing stage where you kind of understand movements. He was saying, like, you practice the heel tap, and you just practice that technique, but you're not thinking about this. You're thinking about the music. And that's how you want to get to the next stage. You want to kind of do all your moves like that, where you're not focusing so much on the move, but you're focusing more on the music. And do it with simple stuff, like he was saying, the heel tap, or if you're a house dancer, just jack, or if you're a b-boy, just step. Just do it with really simple stuff and concentrate on just paying attention to the music. And eventually, this is going to become second nature, and that's where you want to be. You want to be in the stage that's unconscious knowing. So you know everything. You know all the moves. You know your sets. You know whatever, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to do it anymore because you've kind of been comfortable with doing this to music at home, or rather than music, get a metronome. There's a million apps on your phone that you can get that are just a metronome that goes like that knock clicking sound. Try practicing that every now and then. And it's only 4 beats. It's only the. But when you hear it in your head, try to think of it as 1 EM, a 2 EM, a 3 EM, a 4 EM. If you can do that, something musicians do is we'll go. So tap the beat out, and I want to hit the 2s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I want to hit the ands. 1, 2, 3, 4, or an E before the and. 1, 2. So you kind of get an idea of where it's going to fall and practice that. You can do it with your footwork too, or your top rocking. Because if you think about,
well, just that one end count that you're doing. If you apply that to a dance move,
yeah. So if I'm doing this, and I'm stepping on the 1, 2, 3, 4, and I change where I step to go 1 and 2 and 3 and I went from b-boying to house. That's the only difference between b-boying and house. Really. I mean, there's a lot of differences, but that's the main difference as far as how we groove. The way, like if you look at the b-boy rock, 1, 2, 3. Look at a house dancer rock, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're coming up on the and. All they've done is change where they're hitting things. So, say you're a b-boy, you get an all-stop song. Well, you do the same steps, but your back's at the and. 1, 2, you kind of cut your work in half. All you've done is moved your moves over in that little timestamp thing that we were talking about earlier, of the yardstick, rhythm yardstick, that's at 8 count. So you can just kind of jump to the next thing. Just changing how you accent. Let's see. Drum technique.
Well,
dynamics.
Well, I was just going to, like a house example, like of that step that you were doing, that were just the clap that you were doing.
Oh.
So if you were listening to this, just imagine that's a house song.
Actually, we'll go ahead and do it real quick.
And that's the pattern. Like you can hear it in my footsteps. Why tap dancers would do music and they create music with their feet. But if you listen to house, there's a split right there in the middle that makes you want to come across the floor, you know?
Yeah, it's all in that bounce. And that basically comes from disco. And the thing that house changed was dynamic. It put an emphasis on that kick. That 4 on the floor. 4 on the floor is what's typically called for house. And what that means is every 4th quarter note is on the floor. It's kick, it's bass. So that boom, boom, boom. So talk about dynamic. We're still kind of going to
Find your way back to the one or to whatever the emphasis of that song is on.
Yeah, if you just kind of.
And you won't lose your rhythm.
Yeah, find your landmarks. Like if you have a specific type of genre you listen to or whatever. All right. Whatever music you hate, forget that you hate it. Because there's really no such thing as bad music. There's not. There's how you feel about music, but that's your issue. It's not the music's problem.
Sure.
So like, yeah.
Well, okay, so think about it.
Yeah, because like, all right.
What's your favorite style of music, Dave? All right, but you don't like country alone in this room. Does anybody else in here not like country?
Okay.
Okay, hold on.
All right,
how many people like country than however many people in this room? There are reasons why millions of people love this music. because it's good music and they have found something that they
No,
can
we're not saying you have to like it. We're not saying you have to like it. That's not our point. That's not our point.
That's not the point here.
But the point is,
like it. The point is you have to appreciate what it is.
Yeah.
It's not bad music because you don't understand it. It's just you don't understand it. That's what it essentially comes down to.
If you learn,
Otherwise, country Western artists wouldn't sell millions and millions and millions. They wouldn't be winning Grammys. You wouldn't have Taylor Swift making Kanye mad. You know, she does it all, but she can't because she's found a way, and through whatever method, to cater to people through her music, millions of them.
but yeah, like if you can find whatever the landmarks are that make your music what you like, the music that you like. So if you like funk, you know everything comes on the one. So if you're listening to a music song you hate, you can at least go, all right, what's going on with the one? Where's it at? Where does it get repeated? Is it accenting or not? Or if your thing is house, you know where the and is. It's the same thing if you're an all-styles ballad and you get a song you don't know. You can sit there and go, at least you can go, okay, here's the one. I'm a B-boy. One and or two and. I can figure out what to mix my shit in to do with this. Or I'm a house dancer. I can find where the and is in the song. I can go. Like that type of thing. So, but if you can do that with the same thing with any music you listen to. If you don't like it, find that way into it, and from there, try to break it down further. So you're talking about dynamics, articulation. Okay, till technique stuff. One thing I mentioned was phrasing. Phrasing is how you put things together. So, I could talk like, in music we have like riffs and licks. So, that's a riff, or a lick, or that's a lick, basically, no difference. But it's a phrase, it's like a sentence. And sixth step is the same way, it's a sentence, it's a short phrase, it's something you put together. And one thing with phrasing, this is something musicians do, is if you can't say it, don't play it. Because your body can't do what you can't say. So if you're trying to come up with a movement, and you're listening to a song that's really fast or something, you wouldn't want to go out, and, like your top rock would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, like, because we know a big trend for a while was really fast songs and final that people would battle like 140 BPM, really fast. You're gonna sit there and try to, you try, like say you practice your songs, things to music and everything, and you're trying to find a phrase or how to do your freestyle sets or your top rock sets. Think of it like scat. This is why horn players always have great phrases, because they're having to actually breathe when they do it. They physically can't do something they can't breathe. So think of that same way with your body. If you're going to try and come up with something, make sure you can do it with your mouth before you try and do it with your body. And with phrasing, you don't always have to think of it just in terms of like the notes. You can phrase anything. So let's say I played, and I just want to have the dynamics. I want to do what's called like, just playing a pattern. And I'm just going to try and make like every fourth note quiet. So like, I'm phrasing dynamics. So let's say you're in a battle, or you're at home trying to build a set, and you're trying to think, how can I make this interesting? So let's say you decided that you're going to change dynamics, you're going to do something, or you're going to do something with levels. On every 2 or 4, you're going to go up, or go down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You go down, you do your footwork. You decide, you're trying to think like, okay, this time I'll go up on the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All you're doing is you've changed it. You've made the dynamics into a phrase. You said, I'm going to go do this on everything. And so basically all you have to do is do simple shit, and you can just concentrate on making that dynamics, articulation, like whole things at 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So wherever you're at on the 2, You decide I'm just going to stop for like one beat. And you can do that with cypher and freestyle, and everybody's going to go, woo, like they're going to think you practice our shit. And all you did was just go, all right, I'm not doing anything. I'm tired. I won't do anything for 2 beats every couple of minutes, like every couple of minutes. And like, you kind of build sets that way. Build things for your sets. In music, we have what's called like a motif. It's like something that repeats over and over again throughout a song, like a melody or a drum fill or something like that. You can have the same thing in your set, so you want to kind of think of your sets that way. Like your set, any set you do or run a sentence. Coming out, make your thesis statement with your top rock, the body of your argument with your footwork, and you end it in a question mark. You end it in an exclamation point, you do a blow up, air tracks, whatever. But the point is, you have something to say. And if you think along those lines, when you wrote a paragraph in high school, you'd have to write a thesis statement. You would say like, this is the point of my essay. And you have 3 paragraphs in this paragraph. You'd say, remember I said that was my point? Remember my point? Remember my point? You say that 3 times, or whatever. So if you're building a set, think of something like that too. Like a lot of big name boys do this. They'll think of, well, like, have a thread somewhere. They'll do a thread in their top rock. They'll do a thread in their set. And they'll end with a thread or something like that. So just kind of think in terms of themes or motifs. You kind of bring it up and have it go throughout your set. Like try to think of a run as one complete thing that starts when you're standing here and ends when you're back there. Because like a lot of people do this. Walk out, do the set. As soon as their set's done, when the music starts, like I said, you're a musician. If you're playing an instrument, when that music starts, you're in the band. Just because you're not playing right now, if you were on stage with James Brown and you were drinking your water, not giving a shit, and like you do so well, you walk out, you'd be fired right then and there. So like, it's like if you finish your set, don't think like I'm done. Because I've seen people lose in that moment. I've seen judges go like, because they see the guy get up and go, the judge is like, oh fuck it, he lost. Like
He admitted it.
yeah, he just gave up. But I've seen people do garbage and crash the whole time. And they trick people into thinking like, oh, well, he had to do good. He looked like he's clearly confident. So like, that's kind of what you want to do too.
You don't want to lose your character, because even if you mess up, you can make fun of yourself for messing up. I've heard freestyle rappers, well, if they mess up, they will clown themselves before the other guy has a chance to clown him for how he messed up. Go ahead and clown yourself, make a joke out of it if you can. That's another strategy, and
there's
recovering from a crash.
There's a guitar player named Tommy Tedesco who was a studio session player. You ever heard the Breakin crew? Pretty much any song you've ever heard from the 60s was probably recorded by this band. They played for the Monkees album, they played on all these different albums, California Dream and all that stuff. He tells a story about when he used to be a session guitarist, there were like other guitarists, and he couldn't read sheet music at the time. And so he would just play. And he's like, so, somebody's, no, stop, somebody's looking up the workout. And he just wasn't saying anything. He's like, I don't hear it, somebody's looking up, I don't know what it is. Song would start back up, they have to record, still fucking up, trying to learn the song. He stops, it's like, all right, who's doing it? Who's doing it? Then he heard about it, one time he went to a session, and the guy pointed out, said he had a mistake, he got fired. That's when they decided, like, you're never going to let people know how to get a mistake. And I took a workshop with Abstract, and he was talking about, I crash all the time. He just recovers it, and he just never knows it. So, if you fuck up, you keep in mind that you're a soloist and you're playing, and just because you fucked up doesn't mean you can quit your solo. You got to finish till your bars are done. You can finish, get up, okay, got it. And you can act confident and act like you meant to do whatever you did. Just be confident in it. And we were talking about tone earlier, like how we change the sound. There's no exact analog for dancing, but just think of like style. And big question I always get about how to develop a style. All style is making choices. It's making decisions. If I'm DJing, I don't really try to follow other DJs too much. I just listen to a lot of different music, and I pick out what I like. And I just pay attention to my taste. And if you do that, you're going to get to a position where over time, you've developed this style. It's like I have a general play, I play certain tracks, other G's don't play, other G's play tracks that I don't play. It's just because we've developed a certain style. If you look at B-boys, how they dance, they choose something they like somebody like Lil G chooses power. I was in Colorado a couple weeks ago with Lil G for a jam, and he was practicing air flares, and he holds it like this. This is exactly the speed he was doing it at, so he's basically concentrated on it enough that he can do shit. And if he wants to get it on beat, he can pop it. He can go slow as he wants to, he can go as fast as he wants to, he can get it where he needs to go. If you remember a long time ago, there used to be a lot of conversation online about not enough B-boys doing footwork. We don't do enough footwork, we don't dance enough. And then right after, we didn't have an American Powerhead for how long? Like how many years? Like, yeah.
Years.
Yeah, some of our probably still don't have one. But yeah, that's because we kind of restricted people from making the choices that they wanted to as a dancer and developing their own style. I mean, we probably have, like, and it's okay to, I mean, of course you gotta get your foundation, but once you get your foundation, be willing to make the choices you want to make to get where you want. And some of those choices are going to be wrong. Like, we all know B-boys who have chosen the style, and they've stuck with it for years and lost battles for years, and then they eventually go, all right, I'm going to quit doing that. And then a week later, they're getting to the final 8, top 4, they're winning jams. Like, just be willing to make choices, because even if you're wrong, eventually, if you're willing to learn from your mistakes, because there's a lot of people who do whack stuff and they continue to do whack stuff because they're kind of not taking the lessons they should. But if you kind of like the lesson, take the lessons you need to learn, the choices you make, even if they're wrong, are going to lead you somewhere better or somewhere you need to be. And if you're having trouble making choices and practicing, a lot of times what musicians will do is we'll say, I mean, we're kind of restricted by anything we play. If a song is in a certain key, we can't play out of that key. We've got a restriction on us, and that's going to usually keep the music good. We can do whatever we want to in that key, and it's not going to sound bad. So, if you're a dancer and you're trying to make choices or develop a style, set restrictions on yourself. So, a simple example, top rock. Get something in your room, drop it on the floor. A book, a ball, not a ball, it's a bad idea, something that doesn't roll. But anyway, as you're in top rock, kind of dance your way around it. Put a restriction, something like right there on the floor. If you're doing footwork, try to do your footwork around it. Or if you're doing footwork, imagine this foot is glued to the floor, it can't move. And then work around that restriction. And if you look at some dancers like Cujo, he set a restriction on himself right at the beginning and said, I want to be the dancer, I want to be able to do everything on my hands. And he can, pretty much. Like, that's what he did. He set a restriction on himself and worked from there, and he has a whole style, the signature style. So that's a good way to develop a style and avoid ever having to bite. Because it's something you can come up with on your own. It's easy to set restrictions on yourself. It doesn't matter how stupid they sound. I'm sure in the early 2000s we set a lot of restrictions like, I want to grab my shirt. And in the 2001, 2002, there's a million moves where people are with shirt threads going around the back. It's just a matter of setting restrictions and picking a style out from there.
And now, if you listen to various types of music, or if you don't want to just practice one style and you want to be an all-style dancer, you're going to have to listen to all styles of music and at least understand fundamentally what's going on in those songs, so that when you get out there, if it's a song that you're not as good at, or a style of music that you just don't listen to as often, you'll still be able to predict it because you understand how it's broken down. So you can still find your way and at least convince people, that you know what you're doing. Or, I mean, because
You can trick people.
I have done it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So knowing the counts, knowing that there's something in that music also that you can relate to, because you are going to have to show that you're just not out of place. You can't go into a conversation in Spanish and you don't know how to speak Spanish. You got to know your way around. Otherwise, they don't really know what you're trying to say to me, and you're not going to really know that, hey man, we can't talk to you.
It's the same way in b-boying. Like, even if you're not playing any Alpha style, there's a million different types of funk songs, a million different types of breaks, and some people play hip hop, some people play electro. And so when you get whatever you get, you don't really, I mean, you're not in the position of like a KML where you can just sit there and tell the DJ to play a song and keep changing tracks till he finds one he likes. Like, you're just gonna have to dance wherever you get. And so you kind of, if you're in that situation, you just figure out those things that you know of in your genre or whatever you choose, you'll be okay.
Once you understand the time frame that you have to work, you can say, well, I can't do this move, I can't do that move, because it just takes too much time to get from A to B in this song because of how, what the tempo is. You can take a move and you can break it down into 2 or 3 parts, and even, you know, the difference between somebody strobing when they're popping and the difference between someone that's doing boogaloo. They might hit the beat at the top of their head and it goes all the way down to their feet to hit the next one, you know, before they even hit another beat. But when you're strobing, you're hitting everything, you're hitting every single, you know, beat that you can at that moment. It's about spacing and allowing yourself time, because you don't want to look rushed. It's going to take away from what you're trying to do. It's going to look out of place. You're going to look like you're trying to speak Spanish in a Korean conversation. It's not going to work. Like, you're dancing, but there's something missing, the correlation between your dance and what you're listening to.
Yeah, but like you were saying about space, the last element of music we'll probably go over is space. For a musician, that means space and time, like the distance from 1 to 8 or 1 to the E, 1 E and a 2 E and a. It's knowing where to leave space. I think Miles Davis, or it might have been Thelonious, I don't know, one of the jazz players, he said something along the lines of like, it's really about the notes you're not playing. So when you're dancing and something's going fast, if you're talking about before, the 140 BPM super fast beat boy songs or a juke song in a Open Styles ballad or something like that, if it's too fast, it's okay to not do anything. It's okay to wait. Like if you're doing a set, you're top rocking, you can always stop. You can always be willing to put gaps in there. Because if you ever try to talk to somebody and they're talking really fast, they're just going word, it's just long long run-on sentence, they're just talking real fast. You don't really catch anything they say. So it's the same way in your dancing.
Each move is a word in your vocabulary, essentially. You don't want to break up your sentences so that people can't read what you're trying to write.
Yeah, when you're doing your runs, you never want to just keep it as a long run-on sentence. Put breaks and times in there. Because I've seen there's dope b-boys who do a lot of really great moves or really intricate footwork steps, but you kind of missed everything. And by the time they get up, you've forgotten everything they've done because it was just one long thing and you really don't have anything to connect it. But if you're able to pick those stops, a judge that's watching you, or if somebody on the sidelines or whatever, you say, oh, that was dope. And then you keep going. You get time to kind of process what you're doing. And if you have like a motif or something like that, like I was talking about a theme that runs through, you can kind of emphasize that, or a move you have. Like, use it to emphasize your positives if you're trying to take that space. And the other thing about space is, for a dancer, it means literal space. Whenever you're dancing, you don't want to just stay in one area. A lot of the b-boys I've seen, or a lot of dancers in general, they dance in a straight line, or at best a T or whatever. Like, you've got a whole floor. So be willing to move around whatever you can. When we talked about doing simple stuff, just walk around your room, like on quarter notes, or 16th notes, if you're a house dancer. Like, just try and move. Pick a note and just try and move around the floor and get used to that movement.
And walking itself is just a good way to get in character when you're listening to a song. If it's a song you're not very familiar with, just try walking to it or strutting. Imagine yourself on a runway, the way a model walks. They train to do that. That's, not that they just got up one day and just started walking that way. They walk in rhythm. It's in constant motion. If you think the way an engine works with the pistons inside, if you split one in half and saw it functioning, it's essentially in constant motion. There's this swing at the end of it where the energy is transferred back up and you get that propulsion. And it never falls out of sync, or your car will stall or shudder. It will cut off even. So to be in constant motion as well, when you get to a point, be ready to go wherever you're going next. You want to have that already in your head, and if you get to the point where you don't have to think about it and you're just in tune with the music, you know what's going on. Once you get to a stopping point, you're able to redirect that energy in another direction, or stop, comma, pause, exclamation mark between what you're trying to say.
That's a cheat to
keep going.
You take those pauses.
Yeah.
take a breath, think about whatever you're gonna do next. But if you have like, if you have a feel to it, like if you stop and do like this move, you're taking a pose, but what you're really doing is like, I forgot to set. Like you can
Yeah.
but nobody knows that. You can take your time and you can do it in the middle of the set, you can do it whenever. You kind of trick people into thinking like, oh, that's dope. He's accenting this or accenting that, but you know, I'm tired in the finals.
It
I
looked
don't
like
think I'll
he
make it
just,
this far.
came right back on beat. Like he stopped, he paused. I've done that before. I've been in a battle, and like I was about to go, and the music stopped, and it was one of those parts where the beat drops out and the guitar's playing, and I just froze. I was like, oh shit! Here it comes, bam, and I hit it, and I was because I knew when it was going to come in, and it's dubstep is one of those things that it's kind of hard to do because the beat will change so much. But if you break it down into a bigger section, it may be like where a funk song, you're hearing the same pattern repeat every 4 counts. Well, in dubstep, it has to break at some point, you know. So at least you might miss everything in between, but as long as you didn't stop moving and you know at the end of that 16 bar, the beat's going to drop, you know. You can look at it that way. And
yeah, like we talked about that yardstick, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a, I see this all the time. People in battles, all styles battles, whatever. The song stops and people do this. Like the music didn't stop. Like that's a part of the song. And when they wrote it out, there was a rest for 4 bars, and the musicians stood there and they played the rest. So if you're stuck in the situation where you don't get the song, and say it stops in the middle of your movement, well, you're on beat. It's still going 1 E and a 2 E and a. You just keep tracking that in your head. And when the song hits and you kind of get an idea, and songs are always going to give clues when it's going to come in. If it's a drop, something's going to build, or generally in a funk song, drums will get more complex. You'll start hitting open hi-hats, and before the one comes, there will be a crash or an open hi-hat or something like that. And you can just kind of play around, and you play around, and then when the beat comes back in, boom, you're still on beat. And it'll be like, oh shit, he knows the song. And you might not have known the song, but you at least knew the beat. And the beat's not going to change in the middle of the song, generally. Unless the DJ like really doesn't like you. He's just going to change the tempo during that section.
But if you are dancing to a song and you hear bop 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 bop, and you can't hit all those beats, then just hit bop bop bop, and then there's like essentially you can make a dead note at the end of that where you don't do anything, and then you come back in on beat. You can break the notes down. You can break your movements down so that you're not trying to rush to hit 6 beats at a time. You know, you can break it down into 3. You can break it down into 2 if you stretch the movements out. You can go from here to here and just take your time to get there. Just make it look good.
Yeah, like there's a lot of, if you notice, there's a lot of criticism of a lot of dancers that do what, like they're starting to call it like karaoke dancing, where they're hitting like, like basically copying Why Not, pretty much. But the thing that differentiates these guys from Why Not is a lot of times when you're doing that karaoke dancing, like I said, there's all these elements to music. Dynamics, rhythm, articulation, notes, tones, all that stuff. When you're doing that karaoke dancing type stuff, you're only hitting that one element, which is the rhythm. You're just literally hitting those beats. You're hitting the beats.